Hello, welcome to another Frog Popstar video. Today we're going to look at Harbinger of Pestilence. This is an enchant that came out during the last season, but I wanted to cover it today. I'm on the free pick server, but this build is intended for the wildcard realm, but you can of course pick this on the free pick server. So just a little bit about this build, you know how good it is. It performs pretty well in PvE. It's got some cleave, so it does well in dungeons. It's quite good for boss fights as well. For PvP, you don't see it too often, but it's actually not bad. We're going to cover a few different. Well, first let's talk about. We're going to cover three versions of this build. There's three versions of this build that we can talk about. But let's talk about what you need to start out off with. So of course you want your Wrath and your Corruption. These are common, so if you want to be real crazy with it, you don't have to start with them, but I think leveling without them is so miserable, you might as well just get them out of the way, but you don't have to, like I said. Some other good spells are Brilliance Aura, because this build does have mana problems, especially at lower gear, which you're going to be seeing here in a moment. If you're looking to PvP, the Mage and the Warlock armors are pretty good, especially Frost armor. You can so some versions of this build you can have an undead, or now you can even have a dragon. This build, the Harbinger of Pestilence RE, you can see it here. It actually increases the plague, the damage of your pet's diseases, and there is a dragon that you are now able to tame called a Plague Whelp. You can find them in the dungeon in Plaguelands. Skolomans. You can find them in Skolomans. The Plague Whelp has abilities that are boosted by this. And also there's a few undead that have abilities that are boosted by this as well. The highest DPS undead, to my knowledge, is the Plague Eruptor, which you can get after the first boss in Naxxramas. It has a Plague Cloud that's boosted by this. There's also the Abomination. It does a little bit less damage than the Plague Eruptor, but it's much easier to get your hands on. It also has a Plague Cloud ability, and I believe there might be some others, but I don't. I haven't used them. I know the Abomination really is a pretty high DPS pet. It's like number 3 or 4 or so, I think, under normal circumstances. Anyway, I've got another video on pets if you want to learn about all that. But yeah. Anyway, so you can do a pet with this, but you don't have to. You don't have to. If you're going the Treant version of this build, which is what I'm going to cover, and that's going to be the one that's linked below, then of course you can't start with a pet. You cannot use Treants and pets at the same time. And this Call Fungarians, their attack counts as a disease, so they are boosted by this, making them, they give quite a bit of burst damage, and they increase their damage by a good bit overall. So they're the version of the build that I'm going for. But you can use one of those permanent pets, so you can start with those if you like. Yeah, Wrath, Corruption, Brilliance Aura, the armors if you're PvPing, and then you can have a tame pet if you like. Anyway, so what should you card? So if you're going to go for the Treant version of this build, you need to card Treants. It's an epic. It's kind of hard to roll a specific epic with luck, although you can do it if you're willing to prestige a few times. It's not unheard of. I've definitely rolled quite a few builds that way myself. But so you can go if you go to the Treant version, which is what we're going to be talking about the most here, then pick Treants. You also want to pick Haunt. Haunt is a mandatory skill card for this build. Build does not function without Haunt, so if you don't have a Haunt skill card, gotta run something else. Rolling a specific rare, very unlikely, very frustrating if you're trying to roll a rare, as well as some other things just through leveling, especially level 60 rare. So I'd really stay away from doing that. But needless to say, you can do it if you want to. But so yeah, Haunt and Treants for that version of the build. If you're going for the Shadow Form build, you want Shadow Form plus Haunt. And if you're going that version, you of course will not be using Treant. You'll probably be starting with an Undead Pet or the Plague Whelp. So Insect Swarm is a common. You do need it. If you have a card for it and nothing else, I'd card that. Otherwise, I would not card it because it's a common. You're almost certainly going to roll it. You can also start with, if you've got like gold cards and stuff, I would go for things like Flame Tongue, Spellstone, Arcane Power, just the usual mage fare. For your legendaries, because the way legendaries work, if you're not familiar, you're going to see so many legendaries while you level, it's going to try to make you pick at least 2. Sometimes you'll get to pick 3, but it typically forces 2 on you quite heavily, so until you pick them, legendaries show up very often in the draft. So I would not pick any legendaries until you get Moonkin form. And then once you have Moonkin form, you can pick, you know, your Blink or whatever it is that you want, depending on what you're doing. But Blink is what I typically like to pick for PvE and PvP. I just like having mobility, but you know, things like Ice Block and Divine Shield and stuff are also nice for everything. Anyway, but don't pick anything until you get Moonkin form. For the Treant version of the build, Moonkin form is good for this build all around. Wrath and this Insect Swarm Plague version are where most of your damage comes from. So, and then Moonkin form boosts nature damage. This Shadow form also boosts the plague damage, but it doesn't boost Wrath's damage directly. But the Shadow form build, the version's build is okay too. But I like the Moonkin form. If you're PvPing, you know, Moonkin form gives you a bit of armor. It's quite nice. Moonkin form also helps with mana regen, which this build can struggle with. So I do recommend the Moonkin form. But, so we're talking about another version of this build. So if you want to go Shadow form, you can run Shadow form and Devouring Plague. Devouring Plague is boosted by this. If you're using the Moonkin form version of this build, Devouring Plague is not good. Really, Devouring Plague's damage is pretty bad on here without huge talent investment. But if you want to run the Devouring Plague version, then you can. So for the Devouring Plague version, I'd keep everything the same. You would drop the Treant talents for Coax to Darkness and Pendulum. Those are both epic REs that I'm referring to here. Drop the 2 Treant REs and get the and get Pendulum and Coax to Darkness. The Devouring epic RE does not function with Haunt resetting Corruption, so it's not really usable. So just forget about that one. You can replace the 3 increased Treant duration REs with improved Nature's Grace, and if you spec out of Moonkin form into Shadow form, you'll also have 3 talent points left over by the end of it, which you can put into the Nature's Grace talent. It's pretty good. And there's a third version of this build, which I'm going to link down below as well because it's quite different. But I would use Moonkin form with this, and you get the RE Wild Wrath. I'd take out the Treant REs for Wild Wrath and Coax to Darkness for this version of the build. And I'd remove the 3 Treant Duration REs for Wild Quiver, and I remove the 2 points in Shadow Mastery. And of course, you know, you'll have another talent from removing the Treant spell, and I'd put them into Wild Quiver. This build is also, it's actually the easiest to roll of all of these, in my opinion. If you're like lacking the, you don't have the Treant skill card and stuff, of course. But this is what I'd roll for PvP. The Wild Quiver procs are very good. The Instant Wraths are great for PvP. You just macro auto shot into your Wrath, and it will fire auto shots after each Wrath. So you're going to be getting a lot of auto shots out. It's going to be quite good. You can also use this build in PvE as well. It's not bad there either. So we're going to do a little DPS test here, and I guess maybe talk about the build a little bit while we do. So let's start the test. Wow, we're lagging really bad. And you can also see my gear is really bad. I don't have every piece on. I've got a lot of agility pieces on. This is an agility piece too. Like, nothing's enchanted, nothing's gemmed. It's pretty terrible gear. Okay, you had a bit of lag there at the start, but you can see for how bad my gear is, this DPS is pretty freaking good. And even without the Treants, up, it's still it still does quite nice. Just still does quite nice. Yeah, so we've reached almost 4K here. You see, I'm lagging terribly. Game has a hard time. The game has a hard time when I've got my my recording software open. So that is what it is. But the Treants here, they really do quite a bit of damage. In PvP, they do a good bit less, but you know, I played this build in high risk a bit, and I was really kind of overwhelming people sometimes with this. I played a lot last season, and you don't really see this build too much, which is a shame because it's really quite good. And as you can see, it's very easy to play. We're just gonna spam until we run out of mana, and you know, you'll see the talents down in the description. But yeah, we're really not playing optimally at all. But you know, I try to do these videos with no add-ons because, you know, not everyone has add-ons. To see this insect swarm plague just does humongous damage. So I try to not use add-ons for my videos, aside from, of course, recount, because we need recount to show y'all the information. But I try not to use add-ons because I know add-ons are kind of complicated to set up. But add-ons like weak auras and stuff, you know, so you know when your insect swarm thing is running out, are quite nice. But anyway, that's all for this video. If you have any questions, let me know. The build is going to... oh yeah, my recount doesn't let me open my talents, yikes. The build is going to be in the description, so... you can check it out there. If you've got any questions or need help with anything, let me know. And if you've got a video request, let me know. My next video, I'm going to be talking about hybrids, I think. So I'm going to go over some hybrid builds like Arcane Gunslinger and Ice Slash and stuff. So look forward to that.